Hey guys, it's Ryan. Hope you guys are doing well. So today I thought I'd talk a little bit about something that has been really piquing my interest and something that I thought would be very cool, and talking about kind of the history of Napoleon Hill, and obviously like the entire timeline of how manifestation kind of happened and how people kind of got better. If you guys don't know the story of Napoleon Hill, and I got really exposed to it thanks to Kevin Trudeau. Okay, Kevin Trudeau just recently came out with his book, Your Wish is Your Command. If you like the free ebook of this and his original seminar, you can get in the description below. Highly, highly recommend it. I will talk about this later, but if you guys want, you can get that, okay? You get also a bunch of bonuses too. But when I listened to the original audio of Your Wish is Your Command, he talked about Think and Grow Rich. He talked about Napoleon Hill and kind of the legend, basically, which is pretty interesting. So here's how the legend goes. It's 2026? 2026 as a result, right now. You go 100 years ago, Napoleon Hill, back in 1905, he was being a journalist, and he was able to meet, at that time, the richest person in the world, Andrew Carnegie. So Andrew Carnegie was the owner of U.S. Steel. He was the richest man in the world. I think he'd have about $700 million in cash, not stocks, cash at that time. So it's pretty amazing. And he met with Napoleon Hill. He thought like, hey, you know what? And they struck up a friendship, and he gave him a project. He gave him a commission. Basically said that like, hey, I'm going to introduce you to some of the richest, most successful people in the world. Now, this is back in the day when, cars were just coming out, telephone, all the technology was way slower. You didn't have airplanes. You didn't, there wasn't cell phones. So this was a much slower time. So to be able to like go and meet all these people wasn't an easy task. But Andrew Carnegie said, I'm going to introduce you to all these people, all the best people, Henry Ford, Firestone, all these people. And I want you to find the common denominators of success. Find the clues, the traits, okay? And I want you to observe, okay? So that's very, very important. He asked him to do this. Over 20 years, he interviewed 500 of the most successful people, okay? Now, here's the kicker. The original book is something you guys have never even heard about. I didn't even know about it, and I thought I knew this stuff pretty well. The original book was called The Law of Success in 15 Lessons. Okay, this is from 1925. This is not original, but this is a reprint that was made around like 2000 of the original 15 Laws of Success, which is pretty amazing. So in this, he goes 15. I'm reading it right now. You can see kind of where I am. I'm kind of in the middle. But there's a secret lesson. Okay, if you can read the lessons right there, lesson 5 is all about action. Very, very important, okay? So what ended up happening was that the publisher was bought, and this is kind of the legend, the publisher was bought, and then it was watered down, because I think Henry Ford, who led it, but also a bunch of the other successful people, were like, hey, we don't want other people. We don't want competition. We don't want these guys to like keep, who's going to work in our factories if everybody's like super successful. So they ended up buying the publisher, and Napoleon Hill came out with a different one in 1928 version. This is The Law of Success in 16 Lessons. It's a pretty thick book. Law of Success in 16 Lessons, which I've read before, and this is very, very different. These are completely different books, completely different, okay? That also got pulled off the shelves. That got pulled off the shelves there. And that got watered down. And I believe 1930s, there we go. The original best-selling edition imprint since 1937, okay? 1937, so nearly 9 years after that one came out, which is, 12 years after the original one came out, then Think and Grow Rich. Think and Grow Rich came out. So this is really, really important. And don't get me wrong, this is a great book. They're all great books. But I think if you want a good, kind of perspective on things, this is kind of where it's at. So these are the OGs. I think I read somewhere that the original law of attraction, that phrase, came out sometime in like 1906. was I forget which book. But anyway, Think and Grow Rich came out and it was hugely successful. And even Napoleon Hill even mentioned in some of his like interviews, he was making millions. It was completely global. And this is millions back in 1937. So you can imagine how much that is. Anyway, so I'm reading this book right now. This mentions law of attraction. I mean, like, I don't know, like 5 times per chapter. It mentions law of attraction. In this one, it doesn't. Maybe once. But there's huge differences between each book. So I recommend reading all 3 books to get like a perspective. And there's many people I know, and people who I've heard in interviews that they talk about Think and Grow Rich as being like, wow, this was the one thing that really created my fortune. They read the book and they did everything that it said. If you want like a good scope of everything you read, I would recommend all 3 of these books. So then, where'd I put it? There we go. So then I think it's 2006, 80 years later it comes around. And then there's The Secret by Rhonda Byrne, The Secret, small little book. This repopularized the law of attraction and was all about kind of thinking, feeling good, feel good now, be positive, everything you want. Really good. A lot of people have really benefited. I don't think a lot of people have really gotten all the results that they wanted. Okay? So then 10 years later, 15 years later, Your Wish is Your Command came out. Your Wish is Your Command by Kevin Trudeau. I got exposed to this nearly 15 years ago now. And it was the original, he made a seminar up in the mountains. And Kevin Trudeau actually, he was part of his, he talks about he was part of a secret society. He rose to the office of chairman of that society. And he basically held this seminar in the Alps. Another person who's in his group, they held it at his castle. And the people who went to the seminar paid $50,000 to be there. Whoa, that's a lot. Okay. And they started selling this course originally around $1,000 for the audio series. And I remember, I think when I bought it, I was lucky. It was lent to me from a friend, okay, who's still a good friend of mine. And I think at that time it would drop down to $300. It was like, it went 1,000 initially, that was $300. I was lucky. So I read the original audio course. And at that time I was a summer camp counselor. So a summer camp counselor at that time, 15 years ago, I started putting some of the principles into practice. And I basically was able to manifest like the dream job I wanted in the dream apartment that I wanted and the location. And I ended up living up in Japan for about 7 years. And I was working as a whitewater rafting guide. I had an event company. I had an e-commerce company. I was doing pretty good, not to brag too much, but I was doing very, very well. And I moved back to the States and lived in San Diego for a bit. And then, met my wife and we moved here to Oregon. And then the book came out. So the book came out about a year ago now. And the book, I think if you listen to the audios and read the book, it actually engages different hemispheres of your brain and it has a deeper effect. Now this book actually, if you follow kind of energy and law of attraction, books have energy from the original author. So that's why I'm like, you get all of these ones. This is really gonna up your game. If you do this, like you read all these books in like 6 months, you'll be a totally different person. So I read the book in the last year. I've increased my income by 50% just from the book. I've had some of the best sales months I've ever had. I think this last quarter was my best. There was 1 week I made more than in 3 or 6 months. My last commission check that came in like a couple days ago, was it yesterday? 2 days ago? Was one of the best I've ever had and definitely the best I've had at this company. So pretty astounding results, I would say. So highly recommend. You can get this book absolutely free. You can get the ebook free and you can get the original audio course I listened to completely free. If you look in the description below, check out that link. It's completely free. You get both. I recommend that you listen and read both at the same time. Okay, I think it'll really have a profound effect. But these books, if you want to take your manifestation ability and you're interested, and I think it's really cool, to kind of, it's like a journey through time. You listen to Napoleon Hill, you read Napoleon Hill's books that were 100 years ago that have really profound. You know who talked about Napoleon Hill was Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins gave a testimonial on TV about Think and Grow Rich, and his testimonial was the one that was most popular around kind of like people who saw the commercial. He did an infomercial for Think and Grow Rich, and his was one of the testimonials. And then that company decided to do a course around Tony Robbins, and that's what launched his career. It's kind of interesting. So I would recommend Napoleon Hill. You can check out Rhonda Byrne, which is like kind of the basics, and it gives you a good summary. I don't think it really gives you everything. And then Your Wish is Your Command really dives into a whole new level. There is a technique I will recommend. It talks about the activation and illumination process in Your Wish is Your Command. It's kind of in the middle of the book. I did that exact same technique about 5 years ago now, okay? That was a huge technique that helped me double my income in 6 months. It helped me meet my wife, and then I think it tripled my income like about a year later. Just that one technique made a big difference, okay? And then the book came out, and now it's even gone even more so. So hopefully it keeps going onward and upward, but highly recommend you get these books. I'll include a link below on where you can also find, by the way, this book, I paid $300 for this book, okay? Because you can't even find these anymore. There is a way that you can actually get all the different editions and some secret books. It's in ebook format, so just FYI. But you can get about like 5 of the Napoleon Hill books for like $37. I'll include that in the description below, so check that out. But that way you have a whole library, and if you study kind of reading, in 5 years' time, you're the average of your 5 best friends and the books you read. When you read, this engages your brain waves so that you're putting your brain from a beta to an alpha theta state. It's going to stimulate the brain waves. It's also going to increase the hippocampus. It's going to improve your vocabulary. There's multiple benefits. Okay, so reading, they always say that leaders are always readers. So you want to be just kind of reading, even if it's a chapter a day. 10 minutes is good, but if you do 30 minutes, you're going to be like really rock star. But anyway, I recommend reading. Read these books. I think you can really level up your life that way. Okay? Hope this helps. Cheers.